Hey guys, welcome back. We are starting off with Chapter 2 of Harry Potter and the Elemental's Power. What I'm going to do with my videos on my channel in each series is I'm going to do a short recap in each video of the video before that and what happens in that video. So recap is last video. We just did chapter 1, and what happened in chapter 1 is we got an introduction to a man and a woman suggested to be a wizard and a witch because of their powers and whatnot. And their magical instrument showed signs of suggested elementals. And the elementals were seen as fire and ice or water. Maybe. I'm not gonna say. Anyways, so that happened, and then it switched to Dumbledore, Hagrid, and McGonagall delivering Harry Potter to his Muggle family. And we all know how that went. They just went to Privet Drive, placed Harry Potter as a baby in his little basket on their doorsteps with a letter or something. Yeah, that basically happened in chapter 1. So we are starting off with chapter 2 now. So, chapter 2, The Dream, 5 years later. A boy with emerald green eyes, thick, messy black hair, wearing broken spectacles, and had a lightning bolt shaped scar on his forehead, lay awake in the cupboard under a staircase, wondering how long it would be until he turned 6 years old. He sighed and turned on his dirty mattress, wondering if the Dursleys would give him a gift this year, or would they even remember at all that it was his birthday. Last year, Uncle Vernon had given him a smelly old sock, and the year before that a hanger, saying it was much more than he deserved. Just thinking about them made him scowl and eyes darken in anger. He wondered all the time as to what could he have done, what could he have possibly done to deserve such treatment. He knew it was not normal, because he had seen the way they behaved with Dudley, and he had seen how other parents showed their children so much affection. He tried to be good and do well at school, but all it ever resulted in was scorn and humiliation. Was it because funny things happened when he was angry or scared, or was it because they just hated him? But the bottom line was that he was stuck in this hell because his parents had been stupid enough to get drunk and die in a car crash. At least that's what they told him when he asked about his parents. But somehow he knew they were lying. Sometimes he would try to remember something about them, but all he could remember was a flash of green light and intense pain in his forehead, right where his scar was. A loud dong from the clock outside the living room startled Harry, and he realized that he had just turned 6 years old. He felt a spider moving on his arm and quickly smacked it with his other hand, ending its existence, wishing that he could do the same to his dear Uncle Vernon as a birthday gift. It would only be fair after all the pain he had gone through for as long as he could remember. Yes, that's the only thing that described his life until today. Pain. The Dursleys never beat him up badly, but that didn't stop them from slapping him or insulting him whenever they felt like it. Occasionally, when his uncle was in a really bad mood, he'd be punched in the face or get hit by a belt, or even choked, until his uncle realized that he could die if he didn't let go. The result was an overly mature 6-year-old who never found a reason to smile. He was hit if he didn't complete his chores on time. He was backhanded if he got a better grade than his fat cousin. He was punished if anyone asked the Dursleys about him. He was like the punching bag of the family, whose only purpose was to be an outlet of frustrations for the Dursleys. He whispered happy birthday to himself and turned on his side and closed his eyes. Soon he was fast asleep, dreaming about flying motorcycles, annoying dogs, and antlers that seemed to be prancing about righteously. Tap, 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 tap. Boy, wake up, you have work to do. Up, screeched his Aunt Petunia. Harry shot up from his bed with his heart pounding painfully. What the hell was that, he thought. He had the weirdest dream, and it all seemed so weird. And it all seemed so real. He tried to remember what had happened and could vaguely remember seeing some people talking to him. Then there was that flash of green light and a spine-shivering voice laughing out loud in his head. He heard his aunt scream and bang on his cupboard door again. Ignoring the noise, Harry slowly got up with a groan as his head felt like someone had just dropped a bag of stones on it. Or maybe Dudley had just whacked him with his new cricket bat while he was still asleep and he hadn't realized it. He quickly went upstairs to the bathroom, washed up, and got dressed. He then rushed downstairs before his aunt could complain about his lateness again, and made his way to the kitchen with haste to start cooking breakfast for the Dursleys, which was difficult for him, seeing that his head barely reached the kitchen counter. Use use the chair, you dumb boy, snapped Petunia, watching him struggle with irritation. Dudley broke it, Aunt Petunia. Don't lie to me, you miserable toe rag, she said angrily and gave him a sharp slap. Harry held his tears and anger inside, feeling his cheeks sting. Well, there's no chair, Aunt Petunia, he said again. She pursed her lips in anger. Well, go to your uncle then. He'll give you your chores for the day. Harry nodded obediently and headed to the dining table where his uncle was reading the newspaper and Dudley was wolfing down yesterday's leftovers. Uncle Vernon, Aunt Petunia asked you to tell me my chores for the day. Mow the lawn, remove the weeds, and start painting the shed, Vernon grunted, without removing his eyes from the sports section. Yes, Uncle Vernon, Harry replied in a monotonous voice as Petunia came in and laid the breakfast on the table. Harry stared at his plate in disgust but did not complain. All he had was a quarter slice of ham and a piece of bread. He had barely finished half his toast when Dudley began whining from the other end. Dad, I'm not full, whined his cousin from the other side of his table, whose plate looked like it was never even filled with food a minute ago. Give your food to Dudley, boy, Vernon said. But I'm hungry, cried Harry, not believing the injustice of the situation, even though it was an everyday situation. You will give your food to Dudley, or be locked in your cupboard for 3 days without food, yelled Vernon. Now get out and wash the car too. Fuming, he pushed his plate towards Dudley and left the room. Slowly and angrily, he went to the accursed garden. He could feel his stomach growling for food, but there was nothing he could do about it. Still, there was nothing new about this treatment he received from them. For as long as he could remember, he had to fight for his food or going to the bathroom or bathing in hot water. But no, they didn't care about him. Even if he died, they wouldn't even realize it until they needed something from him. He slowly went to the garage and picked up the tools required and started doing his work. It was noon when he scratched himself on the grass, his stomach aching for food and his head pounding because of the heat and humidity. He heard his aunt yelling for him to come inside for lunch. He ran in quickly, washed his hands and face, and sat in for lunch. Give me a second. Okay. He ate his pathetic excuse of a lunch and was about to leave the house and go and sit in the playground when his uncle called him back. My stomach's doing weird things. Alright. Go and mow the lawn. I want the grass be completely even or it will be a week in the cupboard. Harry groaned in protest but quickly shut up and left the room when he saw his aunt glaring at him. Honestly, she looks like a shriveled up worm when she does that. Couldn't they at least give me a day off without having to work or wash that pig's clothes or something or the other? They always come up with something for me to do. Who makes a boy work on their birthday anyway? He thought bitterly. It's hard to imagine that he's only 6 years old in here. I don't know, it's kind of weird to me. 3 hours later, he was sitting on the swing in the playground, having finished all his chores for the day and thinking about what to do next. It was an alright day for once, without being too starved or backhanded by Uncle Vernon. He often sat alone in the playground when it wasn't occupied by Dudley and his group of friends. He didn't have any friends as everyone just saw him as a freak of Privet Drive, and which sensible parent would allow their child to mix with a freak? Harry thought about what his latest dream was all about, and sat trying to remember what had happened. It all started well enough but turned scary and weird before he woke up. At first there were 3 men standing and talking and laughing, and one of them looked just like him. He wondered if that was his father. He remembered that they were talking about him and him growing to be a strong something. Then there was something about a wizard? How absurd, he thought. But then she came, a beautiful woman with red hair, yelling at the men around and telling them to get out. He heard one of the men call the other Padfoot or something like that. Then the dream changed, and all he heard was a woman screaming for help in a high-pitched cruel laughter and lots of green lights and he saw the most horrible and disgusting face he had ever seen. It was scary and terrifying. The face pointed some stick at him and said something, and after that, all he could remember was the green light again and an intense pain in his forehead, exactly where his unusual scar was. Sighing, he got up deep in thought and started walking back to the house. But then the worst thing happened. He heard someone shouting out, "Hey, freak!" It was one of Dudley's friends. "What are you doing outside your cupboard, Four Eyes?" his cousin yelled. "Go away, Dudley. I'm not in the mood right now," Harry said bravely. "Oh, poor Harrykins is feeling sad," mocked one of Dudley's friends, Julian, and they all started laughing. "Hey, why don't we play Harry hunting?" called out another. "Yeah!" They all yelled and started running after Harry. Harry's heart sank, and suddenly he was running for all he was worth. Dreams all forgotten. All he thought right now was how to get away from Dudley's gang and save himself before he got beaten up by them again. Suddenly he tripped over an overgrown plant and fell flat on his face. Shit! That was all that crossed his mind before Dudley's gang caught up with him. They all started kicking him and punching him while laughing out loud, yelling insults at him. Harry felt like his body was literally on fire, and all he wanted was for it to stop. He prayed that someone would come and stop them, but nobody came. He saw the couple from number 7 pass by, and he looked at them with pleading eyes, but they just looked at him disdainfully and hurried past him. Harry felt anger rush through his body and felt enraged. He saw Dudley's leg come up towards his face, and he closed his eyes and raised his hands in an attempt to catch his cousin's leg and drop him while also expecting pain if he missed. But the pain never came. When he opened his eyes, he saw Dudley surrounded by his friends moaning against the wall. "What the hell did you do to him, you freak? You're so dead now," yelled Piers Polkiss. "Come on, gang, let's take Dudley back home," said another, and they slowly vanished from sight, walking towards number 4 Privet Drive. Meanwhile, Harry's mind was running at 1,000,000 miles a second. "Oh no, something would happen again. Should I go back or not? Uncle Vernon is going to kill me," Harry said to himself, shivering in pain and fear. "Oh no, no, no. Why does this happen to me? I hate you, Dudley." He ran back to the park and sat there, trying to calm himself and ignore the pain coursing through his bruised and battered body. "Okay, calm down, Harry. Just calm down. You're alright. You're still alive. Calm down now," he thought to himself. Nothing. What exactly happened? Okay, first I fell flat on my face. Ugh. And Dudley and his gang started beating me, and then I saw Dudley's leg come across my face, and that's when it happened, he said out loud. Now that he was calm, he realized that as Dudley's leg came towards him, he felt a slight tingling starting from his abdomen and spreading throughout his body, and then Dudley went flying back. "What's that tingling?" he thought. Come to think of it, every time something unnatural happened around him, he always felt a tingling in his gut. Is it this tingling that causes these things? He asked himself. He then remembered his dream from last night, and suddenly the words said in the dream became clear. "Who will grow up to be a powerful and strong wizard, Padfoot." That's what the man who looked like him had said. What was that tingling? Was that what this tingling was? Did all this happen to him because he was a wizard? Could he do magic? Wait, what are you saying? Magic isn't real? Didn't Aunt Petunia tell you that? He thought to himself. But since when has she ever told you the truth? He asked himself again. For all you know, she might not have wanted me to know that I can do real magic, and my parents might not actually have been drunks at all. Harry was trembling with excitement at this revelation and resolved to find a way to use this new power of his. Suddenly, all the excitement he felt drained out of him, and he was filled with fear. He knew he couldn't tell his aunt and uncle what had just happened. He couldn't tell his aunt and uncle what he had just realized, and he knew he was going to be punished for what he did to Dudley. He knew that he was going to suffer in the cupboard for a lot of time and be starved for a few days, and if he was lucky, his uncle wouldn't beat the shit out of him. But since when has luck been on his side? Slowly, he walked back to the house, mentally preparing for what was to come. He knocked on the door and waited for someone to open it. The door was opened by his aunt, and when she saw who it was, she quickly took a hold of his collar and yanked him into the house and yelled for his uncle. He knew he was going to get it this now. He knew he was going to get it now. "Vernon," she yelled. "Vernon, he's back!" "Oh, the little freak of nature is back, is he?" he heard his uncle say with venom in his voice. "I'll teach him a lesson for using his freaking unnaturalness on Dudley," he screamed. "Come here, boy." Harry was terrified and tried to run towards his cupboard. Oh no, you don't. You're going to get it from me this time, you freak. Slap! His uncle slapped him hard, sending him flying back. Before Harry could even recover, he got another slap on his other cheek. You dare try to hurt Dudley, he screamed, and this time brought down his fist into Gary's gut. Harry. Harry cried out in pain, feeling something sticky gathering in his mouth. He got another slap and blood sprayed out of his mouth. Please, Uncle Vernon, I don't know what happened. It was like magic. I mean, I do have magic, said Harry, tears leaking out of his eyes. Petunia gasped, and Vernon roared in anger. His uncle then pulled out a bat from the corner and came towards Harry, his eyes rolling in madness. Harry was pleading for his uncle to let him go and saying over and over again that he was sorry and that it would never happen again. But all fell on deaf ears. 15 minutes later, he was thrown into the cupboard with his body aching horribly and barely conscious. He couldn't feel his left arm and could actually feel his broken ribs move when he tried to turn on a tiny mattress. He knew his back was bleeding and he had lost a tooth for sure. Harry suddenly broke down and started crying. He had never been beaten up so badly by his family, and despite his hatred for them, he couldn't help feeling betrayed. By whom? He didn't even know. What did I ever do to get this? Was I not a good child to my parents? He said, wiping his tears rolling down his chin. Slowly he drifted into the darkness called sleep dreaming about learning to use magic and never getting beat up again. Come tomorrow, he was going to do his best to master this amazing gift he had. The next morning, when Harry woke up, he found the pain in his body was gone and his bones felt just fine, as if they were never broken. He was amazed. It was just like that time when his hair had grown back after a horrible haircut by his Aunt Petunia one night when he was 4. He then realized this must have happened because he was a wizard and his magic might have healed him. He remembered yesterday's happenings and his eyes darkened. His cupboard door was suddenly yanked open and his aunt stood there looking at him surprised that he looked completely fine. She was planning to take him to the hospital to get him fixed up. After all, it wouldn't do any good if the neighbors saw the state he was in, but as it turned out, it wasn't required. Go upstairs and wash yourself. You won't eat breakfast. You won't get breakfast, and you will stay in your cupboard till dinner time. Do you understand? Yes, Aunt Petunia, he said quietly. This suited him just fine, just as he now had the whole morning and afternoon to learn how to use his powers, though he would not be getting any food any time soon. He went and washed himself and took a piece of paper from Dudley's room and went to his cupboard. He decided to try to levitate the piece of paper by trying to use the tingling. He kept the paper in front of him and tried making it float by concentrating on the piece of paper and willing it to float in the air by using his mind. He remembered one of the martial arts movies which Dudley used to watch and remembered the techniques they used to focus their mind. Think of a place where you are completely at peace, imagine yourself there and let your body relax. That's all he remembered, but it was enough. After 2 to 3 hours of trying to make it float, he gave up and wondered why it was not floating, or rather moving. He hadn't felt the tingling too. Some time passed without success when he realized that he should first try to get the tingling sensation in his body and then try to make the paper float. So he closed his eyes and tried to make his body tingle by meditating. But after 15 minutes of meditation, he still didn't feel anything. Now he was getting frustrated when he didn't want it to happen. He would feel the tingling, but when he wanted to feel it, he couldn't, and he kept thinking why. After a few minutes of silent thinking it struck him. The tingling was magic, as if he was a wizard. Magic would be flowing all through his body like chakra in those ninja cartoons. So he wanted to feel the tingling, then that meant he would have to reach out to the magic that was in his blood. So once again he closed his eyes, and this time he tried to feel the magic in him. But nothing happened. He kept trying for another hour, but still there was no results. He slammed his fist into the wall in frustration. He hit it again and again and again, until there was blood dripping from his knuckles. Why isn't it working? He cried in tears. Why? The cupboard door was yanked open, and his aunt dragged him out by his ear, ignoring his screams of pain. What on earth are you thinking, making such a racket? Harry just glared at his aunt with pure unadulterated hate through his tear-filled eyes. Petunia felt a shiver of fear run down her spine as she saw Harry's eyes. No 6-year-old should have that look in the eyes, she thought. "But that's your fault, isn't it, Petunia?" said a nasty voice in the back of her head. She ignored it. "Go upstairs and clean yourself. You look filthy," she said, and walked away. Harry just stood there for a minute trying to calm down by taking deep breaths. He then walked upstairs quietly with renewed determination. He would learn to use magic, or he would die trying. Never again would he let the Dursleys humiliate him. Never again would he let them treat him like a slave. Never again. A month later. He had finally done it. He had finally felt his magic. He felt completely at peace and felt as if he was floating in a place without rules. He felt floating peacefully until he saw a beautiful multicolored ice-like ball-shaped thing floating quietly in his space, giving out a sense of peace and power. Harry was completely enamored by its beauty and kept moving towards it. As he moved closer and closer, he couldn't see anything but the ball and felt like it was quietly calling him to it. Then, when he reached it, he slowly raised his hand and touched the ball. The instant he did touch it, it started spreading everywhere rapidly, and he felt like ice was spreading throughout his body, giving him a sense of quiet power and calmness. And then came the tingling. He then opened his eyes, and with the magic flowing through his body, he tried to make the paper float. And lo and behold, the paper moved a little, and floated slightly above the mattress. But then it suddenly fell, and Harry was snapped out of his trance-like state. He felt so excited that he had finally done it. He had made the paper move. But what he hadn't expected was the waves of exhaustion which hit after doing that. He felt like he had just run across the whole London in less than 5 minutes. He laughed and was filled with a sense of accomplishment and victory. But he then realized that he couldn't keep it in the air for more than 2 seconds and still felt so tired. "This is going to take a lot of practice and time," he said to himself, giggling like a 3-year-old girl. He lay on his smelly mattress, thinking the faster he learned how to use his powers, the faster he could save himself from bullies like Dudley and be treated better than the Dursleys. Yes, life is going to get better, he thought happily as he drifted off to the world of happy dreams. Right, that was chapter 2. It wasn't much, it was just, yeah. But, so I guess now you guys know which elemental he is. He is ice, which is pretty awesome. It's like Elsa, but Harry Potter. Anyways, that was chapter 2. We will do chapter 3 next video because this one was actually really long. I didn't expect it to go this long. So yeah, we will do chapter 3 next one. Alright, hope you liked it. Bye bye.